Imagine waking up tomorrow and your net worth is exactly zero. Not negative, just zero. You have a job, a phone, clothes, and somewhere to live. But financially, you own almost nothing. And here's the interesting part. Most people don't treat you differently because you're worth zero, because they don't know. They see your clothes, your car, your personality, where you eat, and how you talk, but they don't see your bank account. So at this level, money is mostly invisible. You can still have good friends. You can still go to the same restaurants. You can still be invited to the same parties. Nobody asks about your net worth because nobody really cares. Yet. Then something happens. You save your first $10,000 and suddenly something changes. Not necessarily in the way you think. You don't look rich. You don't become famous. You don't walk into a room looking wealthy, but you start behaving differently. You stop panicking every time your car needs repairs. You stop checking your bank account before buying groceries. You can handle an unexpected $500 expense. You have options. And here's the strange thing about money. Having money can change how you behave long before it changes how other people treat you. At $10,000, you're not rich. You're still far from wealthy, but you're no longer completely financially fragile. And that changes your confidence. You become less desperate. You can say no. You can wait. You can walk away. And people notice confidence, not because they know you're worth $10,000, but because you don't act like someone who needs their approval. Now imagine you reach $100,000. This is where things become more interesting. You might still drive the same car. You might still live in the same apartment. You might still shop at the same grocery store, but your financial life is becoming harder to ignore. Maybe your coworkers notice that you don't complain about money as much. Everyone else is stressed about an unexpected bill. You're not. Someone says, "I can't afford to take a vacation this year," and you don't immediately relate because you've built a financial cushion. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to tell anyone, but your behavior starts revealing it. And then something interesting happens. People start making assumptions. Someone sees your new watch and assumes you're doing well. You buy a nicer laptop and they assume you're making more money. You take a few days off and they assume you have money. You don't even have to be rich. People simply notice that you have choices, and choices look like wealth. Then you reach your first major psychological milestone, $1 million. Now the game changes, but not necessarily because you're walking around with $1 million in cash. Your net worth might include investments, retirement accounts, real estate, or a business. Maybe only a small percentage is sitting in your checking account, but psychologically, you've crossed a line. You know something most people don't. You don't have to earn every dollar from scratch anymore. Your assets can participate. Your investments can grow. Your money can generate returns. And suddenly, your relationship with work changes. You still work, but you don't see your paycheck the same way. Before, your paycheck was survival. Now your paycheck can become fuel. Fuel for investments. Fuel for your business. Fuel for your future. And this is where other people's behavior can start changing too. Not everyone, but some people. A coworker who barely talked to you before might suddenly become interested in your life. A distant relative might suddenly ask what you do. Someone you haven't heard from in years might suddenly message you, "Hey bro, how have you been?" And then 5 minutes later, "By the way, I have this amazing business idea." You already know where the conversation is going. At $1 million, people may start seeing you differently. But here's the important part. They don't necessarily see the real you. They see the number, and numbers create stories. If you're worth $1 million, some people think you're extremely rich. Some think you must have an easy life. Some think you can afford anything. Some think you should help them. Some become inspired. Some become jealous. And some don't care at all. Those people are valuable because genuine relationships don't suddenly change because your investment account did. Your closest friend might still text you, "Bro, you coming tonight?" Not, "Can you lend me $20,000? Just, "Bro, you coming tonight?" That's friendship. Now let's go even higher. $10 million. This is where the world around you can become completely different. You can enter rooms you've never been invited into before. Not because you're smarter, not necessarily because you're more talented, but because wealth creates access. Business owners want to meet you. Financial professionals want your attention. Private investment opportunities start appearing. People introduce themselves differently. Salespeople may suddenly become extremely interested in helping you, and strangers may assume things about you before you even speak. But here's the irony. The richer you become, the more difficult it can become to know whether someone actually likes you. Imagine meeting someone at a private event. You talk, you laugh, you have a great conversation. They ask what you do. You tell them. They ask about your business. Then they ask, "So how much is the company worth?" That's when you realize they weren't curious about you. They were curious about your balance sheet, and that can become exhausting. At lower net worth levels, you worry about making money. At higher net worth levels, you can start worrying about why people want to be around you. That's a completely different problem. And here's another thing nobody talks about. As your net worth increases, your mistakes can become more expensive. At $10,000, a bad financial financial decision might cost you $1,000. At $100,000, it might cost you $10,000. At $1 million, a bad investment could cost you $100,000. At $10 million, one careless decision can destroy years of work. So wealth doesn't eliminate fear. Sometimes it changes the type of fear you have. At $0, you fear not having enough. At $10,000, you fear losing your emergency cushion. At $100,000, you fear making a major mistake. At $1 million, you start thinking about protecting what you've built. At $10 million, you start thinking about protecting it for the next generation. And suddenly, money becomes less about buying things and more about control. Control over your time. Control over your choices. Control over where you live. Control over who you work with. Control over what you say yes to. Think about that. At $0, your boss can say, "Work Saturday," and you might have no choice. At $10,000, you might be able to complain. At $100,000, you might be able to say no. At $1 million, you might be able to leave. At $10 million, you might be able to build something completely different. That's the progression. It's not really about luxury. It's about options. And here's where people's behavior becomes fascinating. At $0, people may underestimate you. At $10,000, they may not notice you. At $100,000, they may start respecting your discipline. At $1 million, some may admire you and some may envy you. At $10 million, some may try to gain access to you. But there's one thing that remains true at every level. You cannot buy genuine character. You cannot buy loyalty. You cannot buy real friendship. You cannot buy someone who tells you the truth when everyone else is telling you what you want to hear. And that's why some wealthy people keep the same friends for decades. They don't need people who are impressed by their money. They need people who knew them before the money. The friend who remembers you when you had $500 is different from the person who met you when you had $5 million. The friend who sat beside you in a cheap restaurant is different from the person who suddenly wants an invitation to your private dinner. The person who believed in you when you were struggling is different from the person who believes in you because you're successful. And this is why your net worth can become a strange social filter. It doesn't just reveal how people see you, it reveals who they are. Give someone money and you may discover what they value. Become successful and you may discover what they really think about you. Become wealthy and you may discover who actually cares about you. Some people will celebrate, some will compete, some will disappear, some will ask for help, some will become jealous, some will suddenly become extremely friendly, and some will treat you exactly the same. Those are the people you should pay attention to, because real wealth isn't just the number on your balance sheet. It's having people around you who don't care about the number. Now imagine you're sitting at a restaurant with your oldest friend. You've known each other for 20 years. When you met, you both had nothing. You split cheap meals, you borrowed each other's cars, you complained about your jobs, you talked about your dreams. Years pass. One of you becomes worth $10 million. The other doesn't, but you sit at the same table. Same jokes, same stories, same friendship, and your friend doesn't care. That's real wealth, because imagine having $10 million and nobody you trust. You can buy the expensive house, you can buy the luxury car, you can book the private flight, you can stay in the best hotel, but you can't purchase someone who genuinely cares whether you're okay. That's why net worth isn't the same thing as life worth. And maybe that's the biggest lesson. You shouldn't build wealth simply so people treat you better, because if that's your goal, you'll never have enough. You'll reach $100,000 and want $1 million. You'll reach $1 million and want $10 million. You'll reach $10 million and discover there are people worth $100 million. Then you'll compare yourself again. There will always be someone richer. Always. So build wealth for a different reason. Build it because you want choices. Build it because you want security. Build it because you want to protect your family. Build it because you want control over your time. Build it because you want to be able to walk away from situations that don't serve you. Build it because you don't want one bad month to destroy your life. And most importantly, build it without becoming someone you don't recognize. Because the most impressive person in the room isn't always the person with the biggest bank account. Sometimes it's the person who became successful and somehow remained the same human being. The person who still remembers where they came from, still calls their parents, still checks on their old friends, still treats the waiter with respect, still says thank you, still keeps promises, still knows the difference between people who want them and people who want what they have. So remember the levels. $0. People mostly judge what they can see. $10,000. You begin buying yourself breathing room. $100,000. You begin creating real financial stability. $1 million. Your assets become a meaningful part of your financial life. $10 million. Your wealth can create access, influence, and extraordinary options, but none of those numbers automatically make you happier. None automatically make you wiser. None None automatically make you respected, and none automatically make you loved, because money can change your lifestyle. Money can change your opportunities. Money can change the way strangers treat you, but money doesn't automatically change your character. You do that. So if you're sitting at $500 right now, don't be embarrassed. If you're at $10,000, keep going. If you're at $100,000, stay disciplined. If you're approaching $1 million, don't let the number change who you are. And if you ever reach $10 million, remember the people who treated you well when you had nothing, because someday you may discover that the greatest sign of wealth isn't the car in your driveway. It isn't the house. It isn't the watch. It isn't the number in your investment account. It's being able to sit across from someone knowing they would still sit there even if all the money disappeared tomorrow. That's real wealth. And that's something no net worth calculation